In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at the spine waves using a wall. I have a stack of boxes I'm going to use for a wall, but we're going to be looking at them from the sagittal plane, so the side view. And we'll talk about hip leading and head leading waves. So first I'm going to go back towards the wall. We're going to work on hip leading first. I can lean weight into it, but it's not needed. So maybe not full weight, but a little weight into the wall, trying to flatten my spine against the wall. I'm going to peel my hips off, and then one vertebrae at a time until the head comes off, and then I reset. I'm going to just bring my hands out of the way so you can see. So it's hips, lower back, mid back. We'll just do this a few times. Flat back against the wall, peeling off one vertebrae at a time, resetting. Feel free to pause the video and do this for another minute or two if you would like, especially if you're seeing this for the first time. Where we're going to go next is to do this more continuously. So I'm just a few inches away from the wall here. I'm going to start with my hips. And now I'm doing the same thing I did before, but as my head comes off, my hips are already going back on. As my head comes off, my hips are going back on. So I'm trying to have just one piece at a time, touching the wall. I can put my hands on my hips to make sure that the hips are articulating as well. We're going from this posterior tilt, tucking the tailbone, to an anterior tilt, spilling the water of the pelvis forward. Posterior tilt, anterior tilt, sticking the butt out. So, as I use the wall, I can start to do the same motion away from the wall, imagining just one part of my spine is touching behind me. At any point, I can always go back to the wall, flatten the back, working on the sensation of peeling off one vertebrae at a time. Doing this without any wall support. If I'm going to be using a mirror, the best way is to videotape yourself from the side. If I'm using a mirror, I'm going to go roughly about 45 degrees so I can see the movements. Right now I'm using the camera as my mirror, as my visual feedback. So we have tactile feedback when we use the wall. We have visual feedback when I'm spotting either the camera or the mirror. Let's take a few more moments here to do the same motion, this time closing the eyes. Feeling the wave travel from the hips up the spine to the head, hips up the spine to the head. So with the eyes closed, I heighten my ability to sense. Ability to sense the proprioception of where my joints, where my body is in space. So a good dosage, especially at the beginning of doing this, is to do this for 4 to 5 minutes straight through of doing this hip leading wave in the sagittal plane. So I'm going to recommend putting on a song 4 to 5 minutes long and just doing the hip leading sagittal plane wave, and then you'll come back and we'll do the sagittal plane leading from the top or the head. Pause the video, go do your thing, come back. Now we're going to do the head leading wave. This one's a little bit more intimate with the wall. So I'm going to stand a couple inches away. I'm going to touch one thing at a time to the wall. It's going to go nose, chin, chest, ribs, abdomen, pelvis. Looks like this. So I know it looks kind of silly, but this is a very, very good way to get the tactile feel of this wave. So I first imagine a light switch nose height. The first thing I'm going to do is click on the light switch with my nose. So nose touches. As the nose comes off, the chin goes on. As the chin comes off, the chest goes on. Chest rolls down to the ribs, to the abdomen, to the pelvis. As the pelvis comes off, my nose goes forward, then click on the light switch. Nose, chin, chest, abdomen, pelvis. Light switch, nose, chin, chest, abdomen, pelvis. As the pelvis comes off, nose goes back. So just lightly brushing one body part at a time to the wall. After a minute or two, when this starts to feel good, I can start to step back away. Now I have an imaginary wall that my nose clicks on the light switch. Nose, chin, chest, ribs, abdomen, pelvis. Nose, chin, chest, ribs, abdomen, pelvis. Same thing if I'm using a mirror or a video. Standing at roughly 45-ish degrees for the visual feedback. And whether it's today or another time, I will close my eyes, doing the same movement, this time with heightened sensation, because I took out my visual system, the most dominant sensory system. Feeling the wave travel now from the head down the spine to the hips. As the hips resolve, the head is going forward again. Good. I'm going to recommend same thing, setting a timer, putting on a 4 to 5 minute song, just doing the head leading wave. With the wall, off the wall, eyes open, closed. Just getting the repetitions, just getting the movement into the body. So I'll have you pause the video and do that now. The last part of this video is going to be on troubleshooting, so make sure that you've first taken a first pass or another time through, going a little bit deeper with the hips and the head leading wave, 4 to 5 minutes each direction. Some things to look out for. So this is neutral. This is in front of me, this is behind my neutral line here. The wave goes evenly both in front and in back. What's more common is from neutral, I go forward and back to neutral, forward and back to neutral. So I'm missing out part of the range of motion of the wave. So not only does something go forward, but it comes back as well. Something's always going forward, something's always coming back. The best way for feedback on this, again, is going to be to videotape yourself from the side. So you can see if there's any portions of the spine that aren't being involved. Next common thing is that the hips don't get involved, so it stays more in the upper spine. Notice how my hips aren't articulating very much, they're moving a little forward and back, but they're not going from this anterior to posterior tilt. So with the hips, I think it helps to have the hands on the hips until I get the feeling. Being able to feel the articulation, anterior to posterior tilting of the pelvis. Next common thing is people make the wave too big initially. So it's okay to make a big wave, like sometimes we'll intentionally make the biggest wave we possibly can. But learning it, I want to keep my ears roughly at the same height. So while there's this tilt of the head, there's no need to have this big scooping motion. Same thing here. With the hip leading, no need to have this big, exaggerated wave unless you're doing it intentionally. But highly recommend still working on the range of motion, but keeping this relatively at the same height. It's just tilting and going back and forward. Last thing I see on this a lot is people want to feel more, so they use the shoulders. So it might look something like this. I'm exaggerating, but there's often this like rowing motion of the shoulders. For this type of spine work, we really want to isolate the spine, so the shoulders are going to stay quiet. They come along for the ride, but I'm not using them to kind of pump and move the body. So I can't overemphasize the importance of an intelligent, mobile spine that's very well differentiated, meaning I can feel all the different parts of it and be able to individually move them. Often our spine just kind of moves as one big unit, or some blocks will move, some blocks, especially in the thoracic spine with the ribs, it stays locked up. So there's one thing I would have done differently at the beginning of my movement journey. It would have been to more work on spine waves, on the T-spine circles that we've been working on. Can't overdo it, really. I mean, if you did it for like all day long, maybe. But really, I think you'll find that the more you do this, the better it feels, and you'll have this positive feedback loop of, I feel like my movement is better, my body feels better, maybe even my mood feels a little bit more open when my spine is more open. So, good practice dosage on that. We've said like an initial session of doing 4 to 5 minutes, leading from the head, leading from the hips. After that, a minimum of 2 minutes in each direction is good. Even better if you do that for 2 to 3 sets. So 2 minutes, both directions, that's 4 minutes. I would say that's a good daily minimum of working on the spine wave, if you're trying to really get it for the first time especially, or even refining it. If you take that 4 minutes and do it twice for 8 minutes, or even better 3 times for 3 sets for 12 minutes total, 2 minutes at a time, head leading, 2 minutes, hip leading, back and forth times 3, I think is a good amount for a healthy, happy spine. So enjoy. Always feel free to send us videos, and we can help give some feedback for where things might need a little extra attention. So enjoy moving your spine.